Hey everyone, Stephanie here, coffee drinker, book lover, and reviewer of many things, and today I got another book done. I'm okay. So I have finished Half a Soul. This book went by really fast. It is number 24 on the list. I haven't even highlighted it yet. That's how. This book took me about 3 days to read. Hold on, I can give you the exact amount of time because I track my stuff on Storygraph. That means I have to take my light. Give me a minute. It took me like 4 days. It was good. Okay, so I am surprised that I liked this book as much as I did. I read the back and I was like, because the only like Regency books that I've liked have been Bridgerton. They're the only ones I've really read that I'm like, oh, these are interesting because I like the wit that's between the characters, and it cracks me up sometimes when they're so serious, but they're like sparking back and forth, and it's hilarious. So Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. It says, it's difficult to find a husband in Regency England when you're a young lady with only half a soul. Ever since she was cursed by a fairy, Theodora Eddings has had no sense of fear or embarrassment, and unfortunately, an unfortunate condition that leaves her prone to accidental scandal. Nora hopes to be a quiet, sensible wallflower during the London season, when I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm going to say it how I think it's supposed to be. Ellis Wilder, the handsome, peculiar, and utterly ill-mannered Lord Sorcerer, discovers her condition. She is instantly drawn into a dangerous fairy affair. If her reputation can survive both her curse and her sudden connection with the least liked man in high society, then she and her family may yet reclaim their normal place in the world. But the longer Dora spends with Ellis, the more she begins to suspect that one may indeed fall in love even with half a soul. This book. So this book starts off with a little prologue. Theodora Eloisa Charity Eddings is a very long name for a very small girl. This, her aunt liked to say, was probably why she was such a handful, because by the time one had fully shouted the words, Theodora Eloisa Charity Eddings, you get back here this instant, a 10-year-old girl was almost long gone. That is how this story starts. I thought it was great. I loved this book. For the long time, you never know what's gonna happen. Like, it's sort of, it's a spoiler, okay. It's a spoiler. I can't say that. Not yet, it's too soon. Her mom, I guess, passed away or left. I'm assuming she passed away. Apparently leaving her with her aunt and her cousin. Obviously, the aunt's husband is involved because, back then, men owned females. Anyway, and so she is. They're trying to train her to be a proper lady, and she's 10 years old, and she always sneaks out and runs off. She just wants to climb trees and run through the woods and play in the flowers and stuff like that. And this is going to be a spoiler, so just jump a little bit ahead. And she comes across a fairy. I guess it's not really it's how she's cursed. And the fairy is like, I am so-and-so. And she isn't fazed by the fact that he is a fairy at all. Like, that he knows her name. She's just like, and, sassy 10-year-old. And he's like, your mother has given you to me. And she's like, no. And he goes to, take her soul or whatever, and her cousin had followed her with some scissors because they were supposed to be doing embroidery, and she stabs him in the leg and then grabs her cousin's hand and they run off. But as they're running off, the fairy is like, ha, good luck with the part you have, I have what I need, kind of situation. And when they get back to the house, she's not responding like a girl, preteen should be responding. It's like, oh my gosh, what happened? There's blood, and her cousin is hysterical, oh my gosh, I stabbed someone. And Dora is just Dora for short, is like, oh, but you saved me. No emotion, just you did it to save me because you love me. That's so sweet. And that is when their curse starts. I am going to do another spoiler because it's in the front of the book and it's hilarious. But I am going to give you some backstory to it. Okay, so Dora's aunt has always treated her like dirt. Treated her secondhand. She only got hand-me-downs. She never got anything of her own. So Dora never got to go to any of the functions, and she always had to stay home. And the aunt was really rude and snippy with her after the curse happened. And yeah, so the only way that Dora got to do anything was if her cousin was like, I'm not going unless Dora's going, all dramatic and stuff. So that is what her cousin Vanessa does whenever her mom is like, we're going to go to London and, try to get you a husband there, to Vanessa. And she's like, well, I'm not going if Dora's not going. And then Dora had to go. And she's like, but she doesn't have any dresses. And she's like, it's okay. I can wear the hand-me-down dresses that, Vanessa has given me. I've always loved them. They're very pretty. And so about a week in London, she's ignored completely, even by the person who owns the house they're staying in. And she, just because she has no right or wrong unless she really thinks about it, if she just does something, she doesn't realize that it's inappropriate. And so she just like leaves the house because there's no one there. So she just leaves and she's walking around London by herself, unchaperoned. And a big raindrop falls on her and she's like, what was that? Like she's like, I don't know what's going on. And then she realizes that it's raining and she's like, oh, I should act like a normal girl and get out of the rain. And so she like backs up, and the first shop she goes into is a magic shop, which is perfect because she wants to learn more about fairies. And she goes in there and she turns around to see where she is, and there's a mirror, and she sees the future without realizing it's the future, obviously. And in the mirror, she's bleeding. And she's like, so herself is like, oh my gosh, I'm bleeding. And someone like sneaks up behind her and is like, hey, don't drip on the books. And she's like, oh yeah, I mustn't drip on the books. And he's like, hint, hint, it's the Lord Sorcerer. And so she's kind of talks to him and his best friend while they're waiting for the shop owner, and he's saying some really rude stuff around this little lady, and she's not responding like a normal lady would, and she's just like quipping back at him. And his friend Albert is like, oh, I like you. You're gonna come to the ball, right? And she's like, I'm probably not going to the ball, but unless I'm actually invited. And he goes, oh, well, everyone's invited. Every young lady is invited to my brother's birthday because my mom's trying to find him a suitable wife. And she's like, yes, but unless I have an invitation that has my name on it, my aunt will not allow me to go. And he goes, what's your name? I will make sure you get that invitation. And stuff starts happening from there. And so the night of the ball, or the party for Albert's older brother, he asks her, can you dance with the Lord Sorcerer? Because no one else is going to dance with him, and I need him to have some social life. And she's like, oh, okay. And so they're dancing, and then she's like, oh, I just remembered. I saw a video, I think it was the future of this moment. And he was like, oh, when? And she tells him about what she saw in the mirror, and he freaks out. And he's like, oh my gosh, you didn't tell me this is important. If you're bleeding, who caused you to bleed? And so they're dancing, and she sees her cousin with red punch. And as they're talking, trying to figure out who could possibly have, want to cause her this much harm, she's like, do you mind getting me a glass of punch? And he's like, fine. And he goes and he gets 2 punches, and as he's coming back, someone bumps into him, and he throws the punch. And it lands all over her, and she's just like, I do believe we've solved our mystery, and now I shall go find a place to clean up. And so she goes off to the ladies' room, the room for them to not want to dance anymore. And there's not enough water to help the situation of her dress. And so she's like, I'm just going to excuse myself, and I'll stay outside until our carriage comes. And yeah. So she finds a water fountain, the big fancy water fountains, and she's sitting there and she's looking at her reflection, and then her brain goes, this would be far enough water for my dress, like to soak my dress, to scrub the stain out before it's set. Yeah. And Dora got to her feet, wiggled the dress over her head. Only a moment after, she had dunked the whole thing into the fountain. However, she heard a man's voice utter a foul swear word behind her. What are you doing? Are you you mad little twit? Dora glanced behind her and saw the Lord Sorcerer standing behind the bench she had just vacated. His finery was ever been as pristine and untouched as he had been in the beginning of the evening, except he had loosened his neckcloth. His eyes were golden and raked her up and down, clearly aghast. I would have thought the situation was evident, Dora said calmly. Does a man of your formidable knowledge really require the concept of laundry to be explained to him? He is like, after that, he's like, you realize you're in your undergarments, right? Your underclothes at a ball. Do you know how scandalous that would be? And she's like, oh, right. And he's like, and now I've seen you. And she's like, that would be very inappropriate. And so she picks her dress up and she starts wringing it out. And he just like whips out a wand and he's like, and it dries itself. And she puts it back on. And he's like, now let's talk about this curse of yours. And she's like, how did you know? Her cousin had cornered him and told him about it, and she even said, I'll marry you. He declined. So that is the beginning of their friendship. The whole situation is very funny. The aunt and the lady that they're staying with and Albert's mother, they are called the Hens, and they have all gotten together and decided that Dora should try to get Albert as a husband, and Vanessa should try to get Edward, I believe is the brother's name of Albert, and that way that they'll still be close enough in family. Well, Albert has straight up been like, no, I'm not looking for a person to marry. Like, and she's like, well, we do have to put on a show, don't we? Just until the end of the season so that our, parental figures will stop trying to put us with other people. And he's like, okay. And so she starts helping him with his like doctor business. I guess it's not really a business, it's the charity work that he does. And they come across a case that the Lord Sorcerer has been working on also. So the three of them plus her Dora's chaperone lady that they keep sending with her, they are all really invested in trying to find the cure for this disease, this plague. They're calling it the sleep plague, but there's more to the story than that. I feel like I should just go ahead and tell you, but you might not want to know. You might not want to know how it ends. A lot happens. This book has some emotions. It's got funny, like, some of the stuff that, like, the back and forth little banter is hilarious. Albert and Dora both speak French, and Ellis, the Lord Sorcerer, doesn't. And to make him angry, like whenever he's getting on their nerves, they'll start speaking in French to each other, and he's like, and Albert's family treats the Lord Sorcerer like another child because he helped Albert in the war. There are flashbacks to war, so be aware of that. And then in the very back of the book, I don't know if it's all books, but this one, it had about 5 chapters on just the Lord Sorcerer, and it's just about the war that Albert and Ellis was in. yeah, you learn a lot about the Lord Sorcerer, who's supposed to be a magician. Is he? Is he just a magician? The scissors affect him too. Just gonna say that. We do find Dora's other half. I believe they eventually get back together as a whole, but the person who ends up with Dora, that Dora falls for, I'm not going to tell you which person it is, although it's probably pretty obvious, says, I have fallen in love with you, this half of you, not the whole you. And if you do not wish to get back together with your other half, we can leave it at that. I will still love you. And her other half is like, as long as you keep her happy, we'll be good. There is a bit of sadness in this book because of the sleep plague that's happening. So, as it's pointed out in the book, a sleeping person can't eat. And that means that not very many of the children have survived. It is very sad. You see the inside of workhouses and how terrible they were, but you also see the people trying to make a difference in this time period. And that there is a part that I got choked up on. Ellis, he used to live in a workhouse, and every time he was trying to figure out why, every time he asked questions about like, why is this so bad here, it was, oh well, the French are taking all the money on the war, and so as soon as he could, he went and joined the British Army. And he was like, no, that's not the problem. And I can't tell you everything. But I can tell you that these scissors do come in handy at the end. These scissors. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you any more about this book because I've already spoiled so much, and I don't want to ruin the surprise at the end. And I squealed. I squealed with joy at the end, towards the end. I don't even want to tell you why. I was so excited and I was so happy, and it was so like, it was straightforward but romantic because both people that were involved, they're logical people. And then her chaperone that had been following her around because she was being paid to also gets a husband. That made me so happy too. Okay. Make myself all red. This book is a safe book. There's no spicy scenes. There are sensual scenes, like just the warmth of each other when you're hugging kind of scenes. And yeah, I don't know what else to talk about. So like this video if you like this video. Comment below, did you read this book? How much did you like this book? Does the second book, if you've read the second book, does it have the same people from this book? It looks like Lord Blackthorn is in the second book, but that's all I got from the little chapter that was here.
Why is there a pepper and a strawberry?
Anyway, and If you have any books that you want to add to next year's reading challenge or that you think I should put on next year's reading challenge, put those in the comment section. I am collecting all of the books that have been recommended to me, and I'm putting them in one of those big wheels. I'm pushing the button 24 times, and that's how I'm going to get 24 books for next year. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you're not sure if you want to subscribe, you can click my face down here and go check out my other videos. I do lots of videos. And share this video because someone else might need to squeal about this book. And that is all I have to talk about. My computer's dying, so I gotta go. And I will see you on my next video. Bye!